Earlier, we heard from two Democrats in Texas hoping to be part of a blue wave this November. While we still may be months away from midterms, some races earlier this week might be an indicator of how strong that wave could be. Democrats won special elections for state representative seats in Connecticut and New Hampshire on Tuesday. Both of those seats were previously held by Republicans. This may seem like a minor victory, but the Democratic Party took notice, congratulating the winners on Twitter. Former Maryland Governor Martin Malley joins me now from Washington. Welcome to you, Governor.
Hey, thank you, Elaine. Thanks for having me.
Well, you have said that if Democrats want to win back the country, they must win back the states. You launched the Win Back Your State PAC at the end of last year. Do you think the Democratic Party is focusing enough on state and local races now?
Well, I think that the Democratic Party, in the largest sense of that word, is very focused on state and legislative races. I have probably visited, over the course of the last calendar year, 21 different states, campaigned on behalf of 30 courageous men and women that have made the plunge and are out there running for state senate or state rep. And, Elaine, it's in some of the most unlikely places, but Democrats are flipping these seats in Oklahoma, flipped the state legislature in Washington state, held on to the state senate in Delaware, and in places that Donald Trump sometimes won by 15, 20, 25 points, our candidates are winning. So I think all of us should be encouraged by what's happening all across the country.
Let me ask you more about that. As you noted, you've been traveling around the country campaigning for Democrats. Most recently, you were in Pennsylvania with Connor Lamb, who's running for the state's 18th district seat. He's a Marine and a former federal prosecutor, a little more moderate than national Democrats. Do you think he is the kind of candidate the Democratic Party should be recruiting in hopes of flipping seats in so-called Trump country?
Well, in one respect, absolutely. I mean, look, he is from the Pittsburgh area. He grew up there. That was with about 600 people that packed a hall last night for Connor Lamb. He's speaking to that country that all of us carry in our hearts. He's a person who has a background as a veteran, was in the Marine Corps. He's a person who's been a federal prosecutor, and I think he's a very, very attractive candidate, especially for that part of our country. But look, what I've seen are all sorts of men and women, some of them young, some of them old, some of them returning veterans, some of them retirees who are going out and knocking on doors and running campaigns that tell the voters that, hey, look, we're all in this together. We need each other, and we have to help each other if we're going to succeed. So it's a pretty diverse ecosystem out there, and a lot of these candidates are self-selected. I mean, I'd like to tell you, Elaine, that there's some genius hand that's selecting all of these candidates, but it's really people answering the call to serve and realizing that our country needs leadership, especially now.
Let me ask you an issues question. One area where Connor Lamb has taken a more moderate stance is gun control. You tweeted that you, quote, banned AR-15s in Maryland because they have only one true purpose, the obliteration of human beings, and that any politician who won't do the same is either delusional, in the pocket of the NRA, or both. Now, Connor Lamb has not said that he supports a ban on assault-style weapons. Instead, he's focused on background checks. Do you think that it's necessary for every Democratic candidate to support a ban on weapons like the AR-15?
Well, look, I personally, and as a governor, did in fact ban the AR-15 and other combat assault weapons, and I think that is an issue that young people are going to push the older people forward on. And I also know that Connor Lamb, having been a U.S. attorney, understands that we need to do a much better job of information sharing when it comes to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and when it comes to the FBI sharing information. So look, however we can move this ball down the field, there will be some states, as Maryland did, that will ban combat assault weapons, require background checks, better information sharing around mental health issues and school perimeter security. There will be some states that can't go that far, but they can do other things, perhaps maybe banning the sale of magazines with more than 10 rounds. And at the federal level, I mean, whatever our Congress people can do to restore some common sense gun regulations in our country would be a positive step forward. But, Elaine, I think you're going to see states actually being able to move this forward before our Congress does.
From what you've been saying, it sounds like it should be looked at as a case-by-case basis, depending on what part of the country a candidate is running in.
No, I wouldn't say that. Look, I am a very strong advocate for the proposition and the position that we should be banning combat assault weapons. And I'm going to continue to advocate for that. But there are going to be Democrats across a broad portion of political opinion on any number of issues out there. As Democrats, one thing that we all agree on is that our country should actually work for all of us, that every life is important, that when people work hard, they should be able to get ahead. And the unifying banner that we have as Democrats is that each of us should be able to raise our kids in a neighborhood that's safe, or we should be able to get ahead when we work hard. And there will be some disagreements on a variety of issues. I personally believe that the ban that we had in place prior to 2015 of combat assault weapons will one day be returned to the statutes of the United States, and it will probably happen in individual states first. But no, I'm not a believer that we should be running around trying to impose litmus tests, but I am a believer that we should ban combat assault weapons.
Well, the president, as you know, hosted a bipartisan group of lawmakers at the White House on Wednesday to talk about guns. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said she was encouraged by what President Trump said at that meeting. Are you encouraged by those talks?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if the president has an open mind on this issue and is not the Donald Trump we saw during the campaign, I suppose we should welcome that. If he's had a change of mind or a change of heart, that he would be open to common sense gun safety regulations and some limits, we should embrace that, and we should try to find common ground to move this ball forward.
And so the notion that the president, for instance, while he did voice support for the NRA, also openly challenged them. Is that something you ever thought you would hear from a Republican president, especially this Republican president?
Well, after the last year, I can't say I'm surprised at anything that Donald Trump would say, but believing that redemption's always possible, I hope he's sincere, and I hope he was moved by the carnage that we've seen, not only in Parkland, but in other places. And let's hope that this is a positive step and a greater openness on his part. I mean, if he is truly open to this and committed to it and willing to take on the gun industry, I believe that perhaps maybe we actually can make some strides in Congress, even as individual states take action on their own.
Turning back to the Democrats, what other issues do you think Democrats should be focusing on ahead of the midterm elections?
Oh, you know, as I've traveled around the country and talked to individual candidates when they're running, what they have told me, and a lot of these candidates are winning by margins that even their own spouses didn't think possible on the eve of the election. But they tell me that the economic anxiety is as high as it has ever been. People know that the world is changing fast, and whether it's technologies and automation or globalization or trade or these other forces, people understand that change is happening very fast, and they want to know that their own government is on their side, is fighting to make sure their kids have a fair shot at living the American dream, not as some distant promise, but being able to have at least the same opportunities, if not better, than they were given by their own parents. So it's really kitchen table issues, Elaine, that I think our successful candidates are speaking to. They learned very quickly that nobody wants to hear about Donald Trump. They hear about Donald Trump 24/7. What they want to know from our candidates is, are you going to fight for me and my family? Are you actually going to walk the walk when it comes to implementing things that make wages go up instead of going down, that make college more affordable and health care more affordable? And people are smart enough to know that nobody has a magic wand, but they also really are listening and looking for decent, caring, thoughtful people that are willing to represent them in the halls of their own state house or in their city hall or even the halls of Congress.
What's pushing you to go out and stump for candidates in down ballot races, and what is your thought about 2020?
Yeah, look, for my own part, I'm keeping an open heart and open mind to 2020, but I'm putting my energies into these 36 states all across the country where we have governor's races and state legislatures that are up for a vote this year. Great people sometimes make really bad mistakes, and I think our country made a very bad mistake when we elected Donald Trump. But good people correct those mistakes very quickly. And I think what you're going to see in this rare year where you have so many state governors and state legislatures up is that the American people make a course correction. They don't like crazy. They don't like extreme. They do want progress, and they expect their leaders to be able to work together to make progress. And under that banner, I think you will see our party being very successful if we focus on the economic issues, on jobs, on making our children winners and not losers in a fast-changing economy.
Former Governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. Governor, thanks very much for your time.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.